Today, we're going to talk about the impending arrest of Donald Trump. But before we do, let's remind ourselves that as strange as things seem now, there really is nothing new under the sun. As children of the West, we have access to deep stories of experience and knowledge. We've been down this road before. There have been many episodes in our history where evil men gain power and then run amok. For example, take the tale of Sir Thomas More, the man who once was this popular and favorite servant of King Henry. His background was in law. He was an attorney, a judge, and a statesman. At the height of his career, he was made Lord High Chancellor, a position that mixed spiritual author with parliamentary and legal authority. In other words, a very high position. But sadly, he ended up losing that position over his religious beliefs. You see, he was what our current-day FBI would label a rad trad. The king couldn't live with him having those beliefs, so he canceled Thomas More the old-fashioned way, by beheading him. The story of More's rise and fall is commemorated in the play and movie A Man for All Seasons. If you haven't seen it yet, you really should give it a watch. But the themes of law and justice, especially as they impact the tension between church and state, are extremely relevant to our lives now. One particular scene feels especially pertinent to our current situation, where a former president is being railroaded through reckless legal machinations. Much like former President Trump, former Lord High Chancellor More was being spied on by the government through people close to him. At one point in the story, one of his spies tries to blackmail More, but More refused. As the now outed spy leaves the More home, his wife angrily demands that he arrest the interloper. Thomas More refuses for a very simple reason: no law was broken. This adherence to law and order infuriates a young lawyer named Roper. Roper insists that the law is there to protect the evil, so it's irrelevant what law a spy may or may not have broken. Roper makes his case in extreme terms, saying, quote, "So now you give the devil the benefit of law." Roper then admits that if his opponent were the devil, it would be worth it to cut down every law in England. More responds, "Oh, and when the last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper, the laws all being flat? This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I'd give the devil the benefit to law for my own safety's sake." The statement is as poignant as it is prophetic. In fact, two of the men who worked towards his conviction on the charge of treason were also eventually executed by King Henry. Like the charge that President Trump is facing, More's conviction required a deliberate misreading of the law and a desire to see evidence where there wasn't any. In other words, More's accusers were themselves content to cut down every law that lay between them and their goal. And despite the fact that Thomas More had the advantage of law and legal precedent, his jury declared him guilty more quickly than a DC jury for January 6thers. It was a year ago, almost to the day, that prosecutors resigned from working with Soros-funded Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg because he expressed reluctance in moving forward with prosecutions against Trump. The grand juries had wound down that there was a sense that the case was dead for lack of evidence, that any real crime had been committed. Or perhaps the real reason for the delay was the timing wasn't right. Now that the 2024 campaign season is starting in earnest and Trump's poll numbers improve with each passing day, the organism known as the deep state has been forced to react to protect itself. An indictment now would trigger all sorts of legal maneuvering that could delay a trial until a day after the 2024 election. But who knows what their plan is? With multiple investigations into multiple nothing burgers, it's pretty safe to say that the deep state is leaning hard on legal tactics. On one side of America's forefront of laws, we have Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg. On the other, we have special counsel Jack Smith. And somewhere in the middle, we have congressional Democrats led by Jamie Raskin. Between the three of these legal loggers, the forest of laws should be completely clear by midsummer of 2024, if not sooner. But you can't deny that Thomas More is right. Embracing this any means necessary approach to law is a bad idea. And not just for Trump and his supporters. Many Democrats are too caught up in their enthusiasm. It really looks like they are completely unaware of the unintended consequences here. They need to slow down and ask themselves if they really want to live in this new legal landscape. Republicans who have not spoken up about this should also ask themselves, is this the kind of country that I want to live in, where political opponents are jailed and we're basically in a third world country? Think about all the ways in which the law has already been twisted out of all recognition. For example, the January 6thers, massive roundups of over 1,000 people for the crime of protesting, unconstitutional pretrial detention in jails where the prisoners are subjected to cruel and unusual punishment. Last week, we found out that the FBI has been spying and acting on privileged attorney-client communications and withholding exculpatory evidence. Then you have all the pro-lifers being rounded up for the FACE Act violations, a law which has never before been invoked by any prosecutor since its creation. For Mark Houck, he was charged by the federal government despite his case being thrown out at the local level. You also have local associations working to disbar any attorney that worked with Trump. So to sum up, in the face of an election they know they can't win, Democrats have opted to demolish our justice system. Thanks to that, we now live in a country where the Constitution can be dismissed on a mere whim and no one's rights are safe. You can be rounded up and jailed for saying something on the internet or taking a selfie in the Capitol. You can be charged with crimes that aren't even in the U.S. criminal code, all with or without evidence. Oh, and if you try to hire an attorney, they will be disbarred at the first available opportunity. That and a lot of laws laid flat. It's clear we are witnessing a corrupt institution in a state of profound panic. So why are they panicking? Consider the degenerate White House resident whose entire family is a criminal influence peddling operation receiving millions from an adversarial communist government. A government that this same administration is somehow also threatening to go to war against if it continues to aid Russia or invades Taiwan. It's no surprise that unhinged Democrats have whipped themselves into an irrational frenzy and believe Trump is their devil. But in their current maniacal state, they seem very much like young Roper from A Man for All Seasons. Their puritanical furor has put them out of touch with their surroundings. So now would be a good time to put the same question to Democrats that Moore put to Roper. When the last law is down, Democrats, do you really think you could stand up right in the winds that would blow then?